Welcome guys to the Spark Writing Festival. This is our kickoff event, so I am so excited to have everyone here tonight. We've got Lana K. Austin and Tina Mozelle Braziel on deck for us to talk about music and writing, right? So Tina Mozelle Braziel is the author of Known by Salt, winner of the Philip Levine Prize for Poetry, and Rooted by Thirst. She directs the 8-along creative writing workshop for high school students at UAB. She and her husband, novelist James Braziel, live and write in a glass cabin that they are building by hand in Blount County. They're currently writing a memoir about building their home. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Tina. Let it rip.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I see so many familiar faces, and it's so good to see all of you. And some faces I don't know, but I'm glad to share this space with you, and very excited to introduce you to Lana Austin. So I'm going to read her bio here real quick for you, so you know some about her writing life. The author of the novel Like Light, Like Music, Lana K.W. Austin's poems and short stories have been recently featured in Mid-American Review, Sou'wester, Columbia Journal, The Pinch, Appalachian Heritage, etc. And this is her book, Light, Like Music. Winner of the 2019 Alabama State Poetry Society Book of the Year Award and the 2019 Hackney Poetry Award and the 2018 Words in Music Poetry Award. Austin has been a finalist and a semi-finalist in multiple other competitions, including the James Wright Poetry Award, the Crab Orchard Review First Book Awards, the Zone 3 Book Award, the American Short Fiction Award, the Steele, the Journal Fiction Award, and the Machigonne Fiction Award. Born and raised in rural Kentucky, Austin studied creative writing at both Hollins University and the University of Mary Washington, and has an MFA from George Mason University. Her full-length collection, Blood Harmony, which is a fabulous book as well, is from Iris Press, and her chapbook, In Search of Wild Dulcimer, I don't have that yet, but soon, is from Finishing Line Press. Austin currently resides in Alabama, where she teaches writing in English department at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. She's also a member of the Peauxdunque Writers Alliance, but Peauxdunque is spelled like in the French style, so it's P-E-A-U-X-D-U-N-Q-U-E. It's like, it's very cool. Anyway, so that's a lot about Lana's writing life that I want you to know about. But she's also an accomplished singer and songwriter who's also had a distinctive career in theater. Will you tell us a little bit, Lana, about your career in music and theater?
Yes, ma'am. You know, first of all, thank you so much to all of you all. Thank you. And I don't want to, oh gosh, I don't want to embarrass myself and okay. I was like, can I make it at least 20 minutes without crying or doing anything really embarrassing? We'll see if I can do that. Probably not. Just want to say thank you so much. This is a beautiful community. The leaders of this are wonderful. It is my honor to be here. I mean that sincerely. Okay. Deep breath. Music. Okay. Music, I really believe, and this is going to sound woo, melodramatic, but I think like many art forms, and I think that's one of the things I want to encourage everyone is that if you're interested in writing, where does writing meet other art forms? And there isn't always a separation. So let's just put that away. Let's have that concept and put that away. So music, I think, has saved my life. Music from a very, very early age. I was in foster care in rural Kentucky. I was in foster care for years until I was miraculously adopted as an older child when I was 6. And so pre-adoption, music was very much part of what kept me sane. A lot of people, if you read the statistics about foster kids, they don't go on to go to college and graduate school and have novels and have the life that I have. Some of that's because my parents were really kind people who adopted me and showed me unconditional love and altruism. But some of that was music. I really do believe that. And having an outlet for creativity, for catharsis, for just experiencing the world and allowing a safe place to feel things. So music was part of that. So I started singing. I guess I think my first professional job was with my half brother, who was also adopted, about 14 years old. And we were asked to sing at different churches. As I got older, that transitioned to, of course, what do singer-songwriters do? Coffee houses. I did all different kinds of events, and I was always shocked because I didn't consider myself a singer. I didn't major in voice. I was always pursuing other arts. I was really considering myself a writer, but I would sing in order to get my songs out there. And so door after door kept opening. So I was able to do a tremendous amount just writing songs for other people. I don't know if Pamela Donnelly's on here. She's a fantastic person, professional actress who had a production company, used a lot of my music in professional theater productions. Then I ended up working for down here in Huntsville for many years for Ars Nova, which has, it's kind of dichotomous. They have a production company where they put on a lot of operas. They also have an art school. So I was able to direct operettas and to also teach playwriting and just general creative writing there. I'm always humbled and grateful that anyone pays me to do, don't tell my bosses this, that's a joke, that someone pays me to do what I love, whether it's music or writing or some kind of hybrid, drama, theater, music, writing. And there's always been a blend of all of those things for me. So I've never been able to separate the genres. And I don't think that the creative mind really is a mind that is able to differentiate between genres. I think the creative mind is an aesthetic paradigm, and we just like sensory experiences. So probably there's maybe one domain that we're really into. For me, it's music, but I also love visual art. So music goes way back for me. And to synopsize and recap, I really do believe it saved my life. And still to this day, even though I'm not performing anymore, after I had my third child, I stopped touring or performing professionally. I still go probably 5 days out of the week to go play or to sing, just because it brings me joy. And they talk about writing what you know, and sometimes I wonder in the novel if it really counts as fiction, if so much of what you do and what you pour into it is really the truth. So how talented are you? And if you win an award for something you're writing and it's supposedly creative, how creative is it if you're writing what you know? Because I really do know music, and it really has informed so much of how I perceive the world. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful for life. So at the end of the day, music, I don't think I would be here without it. So did that answer the question, or was that a circuitous route to take the answer?
So can you tell us how you came to focusing more on creative writing?
Well, I think that for me, because I never felt comfortable picking one genre. Like I felt that my brain lit up just with ideas. So the best way to harness ideas was writing. And so I think there was always a fusion of this like cerebral nerd girl research person with just the raw aesthetic being in the moment of music or theater and the art. And so I really loved research. I really loved like linguistics and looking at the structure of language. But I also loved the sensory experience, like raw music and raw performance. So what's a blend of those two things? That would be creative writing, and that would be things of that nature. So ultimately, I think I realized that I couldn't possibly just do music. It was necessary for me to almost analyze that process to a certain extent. And then when I went back to finish my undergraduate degree, I was still performing, and I was doing some journalism and still performing and making money as a musician also. And do you want me to talk about Claudia now, or do you have a specific Claudia question?
I do have a specific Claudia question, because both you and I totally respected and adored her and working with her, and she was amazing. And I know that music was a big part of her life and a big inspiration for her as a poet and just as a person in general. And I just wondered how, you know, she and her love of music influenced you.
Oh my heavens. Okay, deep breath. Definitely don't want to cry about this one, but because I loved her. It was a huge influence. And it really helped galvanize me to go on to graduate school and focus on writing and believe in myself, because I was at this point where I could have chosen any career path. I could have kept more in theater. I could have done more journalism. I could have done all these things, but she helped me find a way to kind of take some of the inherent musicality and the actual literal music that I was doing and infuse my writing with that. And so there were a couple of things with her, and this really helped for me as a teacher also. I think there are some instructors, and I don't ever want to be mean or judgmental, just this would not work for me, and I would never want to emulate it. But she really wanted her students to write what they needed to write and be who they were. I had all of these memories and all of these experiences as a musician and with my family singing in rural Kentucky. And I was afraid to talk about it because it was becoming like the age of technology and the digital era, and people were deconstructing language, and it was like postmodern, contemporary, and postmodern poetry and all of this modern stuff. And here I was going to write about cows and singing blood harmony with my half brother and my grandma up on the mountain, and more cows and the tree. And I thought, no one's ever going to want to read that. But Claudia said, Lana, this is your truth. This is who you are, and this is where it resonates. And I believe in you. You have to believe in yourself. I really believe you have a gift, and I really believe you should go get an MFA, and you should do an honors thesis, and you shouldn't just be a communication arts. You should really focus on creative writing. And it's okay that you're iconoclastic. You are. Be that. There's a purpose in it, and be exactly who you are. And so I did. So my first book, Blood Harmony, started as my honors thesis with Claudia. And I was an older student. I got married while I was in college, and it was a difficult. I got married probably too young, and it was a difficult relationship and difficult. But I have like 3 wonderful children from that process, and so I went back to finish my degree. So I was older, and like Claudia gave me this big scholarship to finish my degree. It was talk about belief. I mean, like literally the money. She put her money where her mouth was. I got that scholarship to go. And I don't think they always do that for the older student, because the older students aren't necessarily part of the system. But she and that faculty believed in me. And then she herself, she was such a wonderful musician. And she and her husband, Ken Ippolito, I mean, oh my heavens. It's like, one of the things about being an older student is that it was a slightly different relationship. I could go to lunch with her. I could go see her perform, see Kent perform. And, I mean, and she was writing, they were writing fantastic songs. Like they had this one song that was about her cat, Nocturina. And she'd be like, Nocturina, can you see her? And she would just sing this song and this voice about her cat, Nocturina. And then her best, which was like a great country ballad, almost like a murder ballad. I have no voice, by the way, I can't sing tonight. She had the song about her ex-husband, Jesse. And truly, it was like a murder ballad. She wrote, it was so funny when she sang it, everyone laughed. And she said, it was about his new woman. And she said, I should have shot her for looking like me, but looking younger. And I thought, oh my heavens, that's the best country song ever. And, but she was herself. She was living her truth, living her art. Kent was living his art. And his guitar is on the cover of my chapbook, because I went to visit him a couple years ago. And so she absolutely changed my life. And music is kind of at the center of that. So music and language and just her encouragement. It's okay that I came from nothing. It is okay. She also came from like small rural Virginia. And she worked as a postal driver for a while before she had her big break. She'd tell me these stories about driving around and writing, and before she got famous, and that was before she won a Pulitzer. And it didn't change her. Y'all, for the record, it didn't change her. She was still yes, she changed my life and allowed me and encouraged me to write about Kentucky. So also that novel, the poetry was infused by that kind of ideological paradigm of you can write about home, you can incorporate really rural agrarian specific details and have it ring true and have it be substantial. You don't have to have this deconstructed. I mean, I love all of my contemporary poet friends who are really truly postmodern poets. I'm in awe of what they do. But it's okay that I write with an agrarian paradigm. And that also infused this novel. I mean, what a miracle that the little foster care girl has a novel. I thank Claudia in this because the same through line perspective infused this just as much as it did my poetry. So
well, speaking of like music, this book, can you talk about how music plays a role in it?
Oh my heavens, yes. And there's part of me, and going into my next novels, I was almost afraid, how can I write about something that isn't music? Luckily I've written some short stories and had some success with things. I was proved to myself that I could write and not put music in there, but I was scared because it's such a huge part of this. So music acts as part of the core narrative propulsion. Like it pushes the story along. It is a core part of the identity of the culture. It's a cultural paradigm. It also is part of the core aesthetic, unique perspective of the main character, Emeretta. And she has this really iconoclastic, synesthetic view of the world where she can take one sense, like she sees something and then she would hear music, or she would hear music and then she would see something. And a lot of typical Southern, the myth of the seer and the person who can tell the future, that's something we've seen a lot in Southern literature. I didn't want to do it the same way. So because I had this slight version of synesthesia, and I think all writers do a touch of it, because we're always switching our senses and we're always touching things that become colors And that's we're there. It's just like magical. We're wheeling all the sensory details together in our poems, in our short stories. All writers do, but I really feel it that way. I mean, I feel it deeply. So that's the part of me that's in Emmy, but it's extrapolated. It's in an expanded form. So music acts as this core facilitator for her to be able to see the future in this story, which is a huge part because she's wondering, who am I? Is this gift real? Is this Appalachian lore real? Does it matter? What is the truth? What is good? What is bad? What is my responsibility? And so it functions to provide the culture, the color of the culture of the totality of the novel, but also defines the main character and her main unique defining characteristic. It wouldn't exist without music. And I don't think I would have been able to write it the way that I wrote it. And I don't think anyone would have wanted to publish it if I hadn't believed it so much. The editors that were interested in, the people that, all the authors, they were like, we believe this. Even though it's a far-fetched story, there are aspects of it, we can feel it. You're telling us crazy stuff here, Lana Austin. There are crazy things that happen in this novel. But the heart of it, especially the music description, it grounds it because we believe it. And
yeah,
so
that mountain gift was really like one of my favorite parts of the novel. But I guess another thing that I really admired about it and loved about it was how many love stories it contains. I mean, it's romantic love, right? But there's also a lot that the main character, Emmy, she has this love for her family. There's this huge love for the landscape and the culture, and she falls in love with the young girl in the novel. And writing about love can be difficult. And I was wondering, how do you write about love? And also, how did you write about so many varieties of love? Like, you crammed a lot of love in here.
You know what? To me, that is a wonderful question, Tina. I'm so glad. I think that's indicative of your heart paradigm, that you would see that and see that refracted kaleidoscopic version of love in the novel, because you see love in so many places in so many ways. I think that's indicative of you, just for the record. I think that's like a Rorschach. That's what I think. That was probably the easiest thing for me to write in the novel, because for all the horror in the world and all the horror I've experienced, there is beauty everywhere. And it really comes down to relationships. And I've witnessed beautiful relationships, like with my mom. And a lot of them, you mentioned a whole bunch of different relationships, but one of the ones you talked about was love in different forms. So I think a lot of people think of love, a love story, immediately think of the romantic relationship. And that is one facet, but this was multifaceted. And you most definitely honed in on that, because I wrote the women and the various levels of types of female relationships in this novel, because I saw that. I was a witness to that. And there are many problems. Please, I don't want to, I'm not a negative person. It's not my personality, but I also speak the truth. In the novel, I speak the truth. The characters speak the truth. There is no utopia. The South is not perfect. Look at what has just happened in the world and the United States. And I most certainly address that in the novel. But what is beautiful, what I did witness that was good, was a lot of strong women that, despite the odds, despite sometimes negative facets of like a patriarchal paradigm, that they bonded together, and there was beauty and strength, and they sang together, they worked together, they healed each other, they loved each other. And no one character is based on one person in this novel, but almost all of the characters are a convergence of a profusion of people that I actually knew, especially the women. So I was able to write about love, especially amongst the women, because I saw women, magnificent women, love each other, love me, love the world, make it better. I've been very grateful for that. Again, I think that's part of how I was able to survive everything I've survived, because I've had all that love to compensate for everything that came before in my childhood. So much love, and especially from those strong women figures like my grandmother and my aunts and my mom.
So there is a call from the audience that you read a bit of your novel. I hope that's not putting you on the spot. And maybe you want to read a bit from the part with the women. I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
Not to put you on the spot. Maybe you have another passage you would rather read.
Yes. Thank you for whoever asked that. Thank you so much. Let me try to find a place.
I think it was by popular demand. Laura Cotton and Jessica Temple and Haley.
Place towards the end where all the main women characters come back together. They kind of start the end of the first chapter. A lot of the core women characters sing because a lot of crazy, really bad stuff has happened, and to soothe themselves, they sing together. But the very last scene of the novel, and maybe at the very last scene, but the penultimate scene, they also come back together. And there's even more women than the first scene because they've kind of gathered more, and that family of women has grown. There's a burgeoning of women. And I will try to find that and read from that group of women. Love and light and music all kind of at the same time. So they've come back to Emeretta, that's the main character, to her family's farm. And they're on that front porch of that little old farmhouse in rural Kentucky. And lots of bad things have happened, but there's so much hope. And I think it's because they're all together.
Right.
Fee, it's one of the aunts, and Deirdre sat in the swing. Little Maddie climbed back up into her grandmother's lap. And Kelly sat on the top porch step while Emmy took the bottom one. For several minutes, none of them said anything. They looked out across the farm as the color touching everything changed. And then it changed again. Moving through many versions of gold and copper into blues and violets. Off in the distance, barely visible through the patch of trees around the house, they could hear the Red River. Its sound grew deeper, changing along with the light as the sun set. Before her mountain gift could begin its own music, Emmy heard her aunt start singing. Fee's voice was not joyful, nor was it melancholy. To Emmy, it sounded like pure time. Something moving forward endlessly and honestly. Fee sang the beginning line, "Shall we gather at the river?" Then she repeated it until everyone on the porch but Maddie was singing. When they reached the refrains, "Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river," they broke into a harmony so expansive that Emmy touched the ground to see if it was trembling. Emmy, she believed the song they were singing came up out of the earth, then moved into and out of the women until it was flung back to the ground again. A circle of sound, a hallowed hoop connecting them to the farm.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm sorry I get emotional. Okay.
I just, I don't know, and maybe just what you're reading answers this question implicitly, but I wondered if you wanted to say something more about it. It just seems like that so many of Emmy's loves are connected to her through music. And can you talk about writing music as a love language and how you translate that to the page?
This is, yes. And this is something I think that, we were talking about this earlier about, I think how a lot of us feel guilty if we're not, because this is a writing festival, right? So we want to feel encouraged with our writing and we want to have skills. And a lot of us, we want to write every day. We want to accomplish. And if we're not writing every day and accomplishing, we feel really guilty. But the truth is that writing comes down to evoking sensory experience. And that's really always about passion and love. And living out our passions and our love in a tangible, corporeal way out in the real world allows us to then infuse our writing with that. And we're able to create images and make the writing come alive with like imagistic prowess because of that passion and that love. So for me, that's music. For someone else, it's the natural world or photography or seeing paintings or like even like needlepoint or a musical instrument. So, and they're all different versions and reflections and refractions of that kind of love or passion and ways we experience it. So music then becomes just another facilitator. And so it's like it's a thread of light connecting one sense to the language. And so I feel this so intensely and this love and this raw emotion, and then it comes through into the language. And I think that's hopefully an encouragement to anyone to go out there and whatever their passion is in different avenues besides their passion for writing, to be able to see it as congruent, to be able to see it as correlating, to be able to see it as these things match, these things help each other. So, because I don't believe in writer's block, I believe in writers experiencing differently temporarily, so then they can go back into the writing world. But it's always the passionate world, it's always the sensory world, it's always the love world. And it's just a matter of which little house you're putting that feeling in. Maybe the house is the house of music, and maybe the house is the house of language, but the core passion and love is there in either one. It's going to live in either house. Does that make sense? Did I answer that great?
Yes, great. So I'm going to ask just one more question, so there'll be time for others to ask questions.
Okay.
And like music addresses violence against women and racism in a small Kentucky community. In other words, it deals with many of the issues that our part of the country is criticized for. Emmy, your main character, struggles with how to reconcile her love for the people and the culture and the atrocities that they commit and allow. Why was this important for you to explore and grapple with?
Deep breath. If I had to distill 2 goals I had when writing this novel, there is the pure creative goal of tell this story and tell it well, like tell a unique story. And I started with an image, and I'm like, how do I build this image and create it and tell a good yarn? But once I knew I was going to tell that story, and this is true with me with everything that I do, I wanted to tell the truth. So once I knew I was going to write about Kentucky, it's like, I have to tell the truth. And there's a part in there where Emmy decides she's going to tell the truth. A little bit of me is in all these characters. That's a little part right there. So to tell the truth, required to tell the truth. And a lot of what, like all the characters in this novel are based on real people. No one person is a one-for-one, doesn't correlate directly 100% with someone else, but they're all based on real people. And a lot of the experiences are based on real experiences, especially the magical ones. No, I'm kidding. I always say that. People are like, which parts of this novel are true? And I'm like, the magic parts are. But the violence, the racial discrimination, that's all happened. And so when people read it and they feel that it's true, it's because it is. And so if it didn't happen to me directly or exactly like that, it's because I took a compilation. And a lot of times writers will compress things simply because you're taking disparate events and there's so much historically and you're compressing it. So it was very important for me to tell the truth. I don't think I could live with myself and not tell the truth. But I mean, of course, that also meant the beauty. There's so much beauty to Kentucky. I love, that is my home. And I love my people there. It's because I love my people there that I wanted to tell the truth. So I don't think I had a choice. And you know, and the writer's biggest, especially with something like a long form novel, I think the writer's biggest burden to bear sometimes is this nexus, this crossover point between trying to deal with the artifice of it and wanting to be aesthetically pleasing. And there's a job to that. And you're rendering something aesthetically for other people outside of yourself. And you have to be cognizant of that. And that's why you do revision. And that's, you work with editors and you're pleasing other people. But then you also have to please this sense of morality within yourself, of, especially if you're dealing with topics that are based in truth. So you have to be true to that and honor that. And you feel a sense of, responsibility. So balancing those to where one, because you don't want to preach, you don't want to be overly didactic, you don't want that to overtake the aesthetics, because then no one will even want to read it. So what is that balance? And, this is my first novel. And I think I got one review that I call it an A-B+ review. And which I was so happy for, because I've only taken one fiction class. I was a poet and I don't even know how I got a novel published. I was like, oh my gosh, how did I get a novel published? Whoa. So I was so excited even by that review, because they still really loved the novel. But I think, you look at how much you put into a novel and how much you want to address. Maybe I put too much truth in there. Maybe I cared too much about too many issues, and maybe I should have splintered it into 2 novels and addressed this issue and this issue. I'm going to have to think about that. I'm going to have to consider that and be a better novelist. And that is okay. Writers, hear me. It is okay to not be perfect. It is okay to consider that you could do it differently. Claudia, go back to Claudia. I got to introduce her when she came to George Mason when I was getting my master's, and she came to read, and she'd won the Pulitzer. She had her Pulitzer Prize winning book, and she had her little pencil though. And after the reading, we're talking and everything, and she's making notes. I'm like, what you doing? She's like, oh, I'm making edits. I'm like, what edits? This one, what are you talking about? And she was changing things in case it was ever published or part of a collected works. She didn't like things. And she had conversations with her editor, Dave Smith, who's now a friend of mine. I know he's a wonderful editor. And she's like, I'm making changes. That's not good enough anymore. And she was going to keep editing, it's okay. So yes, that sense of, this morality that's there. Sometimes I'm like, did I bite off more than I could chew? Because I'm very pacifistic, I'm very gentle. So sometimes I didn't even know consciously that I was infusing so much social justice issues. I didn't know I was trying to be true to the story. And it's only in hindsight that I realized how much of it was what it was. It was like it almost thought to come out just organically. And I was like, oh no, oops. But I left it in there because it was the truth. And that I wanted to tell the truth. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for telling that truth. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
So I think there's some questions from people. I think there was a question about how you carry on the compassion from Claudia Emerson to your students. I think Ashley was asking that question earlier.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for that question. First of all, I love teaching, and it's also very humbling because sometimes I'm not chronologically oriented. It's I mess up my numbers sometimes, and so it's very humbling for me, schedules and things like that. So I have to work really hard at that. But I think it's an honor to be able to be involved in the process of educating someone and encouraging someone. So I'm a super geek, and I really, really love technique and structure. So I teach creative writing, but I also teach a rhetoric and composition, and I was also offered literature. So, but at the end of the day, this is the bottom line. This is what defines me. And you can go look it up on ratemyprofessors.com. While I'm very, very cerebral and very, very pragmatic and utilitarian, and I have this list of things that I need to accomplish with my students, and I use my serious voice when I say that, the truth is, I believe that students I believe that most people are really, really, really smart, and they can smell BS. They know whether you care or not. They know whether you're working hard or not, whether you have their best interest in mind. So my job is made easier because I really do care. And they can tell I care. So even when I mess up, most of the time, even that's okay, because they know at what deep level I care and how hard I'm working. I believe education is the power for change. I have been in rural America. I have, had a biological family that was devoid of education. I've seen and experienced some of the product of that and what happens to people when they don't have access to education and what they turn to out of despair. So I see it as this empowering tool, and I want people to have choices. So it's a beautiful thing to me. So I also, because I've experienced really only once, maybe 1.5 times, a professor being really, really harsh unduly. And then I've experienced some really great professors like Claudia, and also at GMU, I had 2 people like Claudia, Jennifer Atkinson and Eric Pankey. And I've had others that are wonderful, but those are the top. I knew I had a template, like with my mom, my adopted mom, how to be altruistic, how to be encouraging, how to teach both technique and structure and require something of substance from your student, but do it in a way that they absolutely know that you are on their side, because it's going to be a balance of both or it's not going to work. So that was one of the most beautiful gifts I was ever given. And I literally carry their words in my head and think about them constantly. It's probably almost every class. And even when I've been teaching at home, it's just still inside my head. And even without the words, it's this feeling of purpose. So I take it very seriously. I think that you can crush a student. I think that if you abuse that power, you can crush a student. And I take it very seriously. Maybe too seriously sometimes, but I'd rather err on the side of caution and care too much than too little. When we're talking about a tenuous point in someone's life, and this is a intersection where people are changing, and it's pivotal, and they're making life choices, and they're leaving home and defining themselves, and they're scared, and we're talking that kind of intersection. That's powerful, but that's also the potential with it's fraught with peril. So no. So I most certainly have tried to perpetuate the positivity that has been shown to me and pay it forward. Literally, Claudia, when I asked her, how do I ever pay back what you did for me? She flat out told me, you don't owe me anything. You pay it forward to your students and to some other fellow writers that are gifted. Don't give it back to me. You pay it forward. And I take that seriously.
Thank you for that. That's absolutely incredible. I love it. Because as teachers, it's an important job, right? So we do have a couple of other questions that came through on our chat. So has time in quarantine strengthened or weakened your desire and ability to create?
Oh my heavens. Okay, get close to the camera. Y'all nod. Do y'all want the real truth? I'm gonna have to see. Do you want me? Do you want me to tell the real truth? Not if you want me to tell you the deep, dark, secret truth. Not. Okay. I'm a horrible liar, so you were going to get it anyway. I just wanted to make sure that y'all weren't asleep. Okay. So yes, I have both. I have felt, I want to keep it real. As I have some teenagers. I like to say I got married when I was 7 and had children when I was 7. So y'all just remember that when I say I've got older kids, just remember wink that I was really young. That's a joke, y'all. So my youngins say, oh, I'm keeping it real, Mom. You got to keep it real. I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I have failed creatively, I feel. At first, I felt that. I felt guilt at first when I was not producing as much as I thought that I should be producing because I had more free time. Because I'm high risk, because I have really bad asthma and a complication after a surgery. I'm like, oh, I'm not going out as much because I'm a very social person. I love people, but I've been stuck home a lot more than normal. I have more free time. I should have already finished book number 2. I should have finished novel number 2. I should have written 30 new songs. I should have cured cancer, because I should have taught myself like a medical degree by now and cured cancer on top of that, because y'all, I really care about that. I do. I'm not kidding. I care. I didn't do any of that. So at first I felt really guilty. And then I tried to do what I would tell any of my students, which is really hard for me to do, but that's the perspective, which is, this is an anomalous time, and there are seasons, and there are different paces for doing things. And so I did the best that I could, and I'm doing the best that I can, and I am producing work. And in some ways I have more ideas, and I keep writing those ideas. I'm just not able to concentrate and finish them. There have been some catastrophes, like my mom had a stroke. My mom has COVID right now. And so there's some things that I just wasn't expecting to happen. And it's derailed me a little bit. And that's okay. So sometimes we're generous with everyone else, but we have to be generous with ourselves. As always, I think it's a balance. So I'm continuing to dream big. I am disappointed that I have not submitted anything in over a year. So no one's seen me publishing anything, and I'm not finishing projects, but I am still writing. But you know what? The fact that anything that I'm doing in an environment this chaotic and crazy, if I was having this someone else was telling me this story, I would say, the fact that you're still here, show yourself some, give yourself a chance. So I'm not doing as much as I would have liked, but I think that that's okay. And so I'm just keeping it real with y'all, okay? That's the honest to goodness truth.
Right? No, and I appreciate that deep honesty, because I think all of us are there as well, right? Okay, another question.
Swift, except for Taylor Swift. I mean,
right? What's up? Released 2 albums? I don't know.
Okay. It's the only time, and I say this jokingly, but after that second new album came out, I did think, are we sure that she doesn't have like a meth addiction, that she's like really, really able to do a whole bunch of, I'm joking, because that was a lot of productivity. I was like, wow, oh my heavens.
Girl, she doesn't have kids and she doesn't have classes to teach. So come on now. Like,
that's it. Yeah, no, shout out to Tay-Tay. I am teasing. I was happy for her. And she's gone in a creative area that's even more aesthetic. Like, she's being iconoclastic from her own self, and she took risks on us. I'm joking, y'all. I'm in favor of it. I just thought it was funny.
All right. We have a couple others questions. What writers do you go to for inspiration?
Oh my heavens, what writers do I not go to? Miss Tina. She oh gosh. Look, okay, I don't know if you guys can see. Can you guys see like some of this stuff beside me? This is just on my floor, okay? That's not even my office shelves, right? Can you see? Wait.
A little more. Yeah, oh, there it is.
Okay, so I read voraciously in all genres, and yet crazy, I also still go back to the old school, like when, like I have a favorite poem that, and I love all the contemporary stuff, and I still keep going back to it because it just does something to me. I don't know. It's James Wright's A Blessing, and it's just this, it's this interesting. Anyway, so I read everything. So when you say favorite, and if I had to, and I'm like, I can't answer that question. It's like asking me who my favorite child is out of my three. That would make me cry to like have, if someone forced me to pick a child, because my children are all so different. They're really, really, really unique and kind, and not perfect, trust me, but wonderful. So I love many, 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 many people, both old school people and a lot of new school people. So that's, and also like for fiction. So are we talking about poetry or are we talking fiction?
Let's say poetry first. Maybe we'll get to fiction.
Okay, someone who, okay, two people, and these popped up, but please, for all the other people who didn't pop into my head first, I don't ever want to hurt their feelings, but I'm just going to say two, and here are the reasons why. Okay, so Savannah Sipple is an Appalachian poet, but she wrote a kind of, for her to, with her in Appalachia, to marry a woman and write about it, and also write about her body and not being thin, and in a culture in the South that's like obsessed with beauty pageants and things like that, and this fusion and the way she did it, it was so visceral. It gave me permission. It changed how I've been writing my second book. That's the bottom line. It changed how I've been writing my second book. Tiana Clark is many years younger than I am, and yet I look to her as a mentor. She gave me permission to write honestly about my biological father. I was always afraid of that process because I didn't want to write anything negative, because I'm a very positive person. And I'm not, I met some of my biological family, and they're wonderful people. That doesn't mean that I don't have anguish from that experience. And her writing is potent, and she tells the truth, and you can feel it. It's like almost like you can touch it. It's not just language, it becomes a tangible force, both beautiful and the anguish part, but the anguish part is still its own kind of beauty. So those are two poets that I've read and reread recently because they just, that visceral quality and the subjects they were covering intersected with some of the iconoclastic things that I need to be doing. As I have I'm like with Savannah being different from what people thought that she was. For me, I grew up so much like Southern Baptist and like the Republican thing. And like I have this thing called I was a Republican, you know, like when I was a kid, and I'm like writing about what I was and what was thrust upon me. And she gave me permission to write into that and then break from that. And then Tiana with that specific topic. So there's a real intersection for me, and to see, and their writing styles, their voices are very different, and they're very different from mine. But I like that because I could see the content connected with me. And I could also understand how different people handled that kind of content in different ways. And it's a good teaching moment also for myself and for my students. So those are two poets for very specific reasons that I have learned from and been challenged by recently. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so I've got two more questions to wrap it up with. How did you choose the song that was in the very first scene that you read? The scene with the women. How did you choose that one?
I'm sorry, how did I choose the what?
How did you choose the song in the selection that you read from?
Just simply because of the river connection, with the river being such a throughway, like literally through the novel, that it kind of fit and it kind of narratively tied it together. Also, that's just an old-timey thing that's like, I tried to work in a lot of the culture of what I grew up with. Like one big scene in the novel, one of the biggest like prophetic vision moments is when one of the aunts is singing Jolene, and you know, that's like, it's like Dolly. If there's a God, it's Dolly part. You know what I'm saying? That's like, you know, it's Dolly. It is Dolly. So those kind of iconic things permeate the culture there in Kentucky, at least for, you know, my area. So that was easy to do because the people that I know, both my actual family and then like contextually the larger family of my community, because I was really kind of raised by my hometown, that they also would sing those songs. It's just that was really just bam, and it fit with the river connection. So that was easy for me to put in there.
Right. And then how difficult is it for you to get your work published? So how long did it take you to publish your book?
Okay. I'm scared to answer this because I want to say that there are always outliers. Okay, so this was abnormal because I feel guilty that, and I've certainly had rejection, but my novel didn't take that long, and I probably could have kept longer at the big fives. I had it like it was less than it was about a year after I started submitting it to agents and to editors. And I worked with an agent, and it was with a big five editor, Macmillan. When I was going the agent route and when I was first having conversations, it kept coming back to me that I kept getting the same feedback a lot of the time was, well, we're really, really talented, but here are the problems, or here's what we think. This is very fusion of genres, and we thought it was going to be this, but it's really this. It's very literary, and which really translates into, we don't think it's going to sell very much, or at least not at the levels to justify a big 5. So that I got told the university press. So once I decided to try to do a university press route, which is highly respected amongst literary writers and professors, then I submitted it to like 5 publishers and they all took it. And then the first one, which was my favorite, which was West Virginia, because they had won the most like Southern and Appalachian awards, and my novel is considered a Southern and Appalachian book. They'd won the most of those types of awards. They had a really good reputation. I pulled it from the other university presses because I had to. I couldn't go through peer review with them unless I pulled it. So it only took about a year. And once I started submitting it, and to agents and to editors. So that's unusual, I think, especially for a first novel. I don't know how that happened. I think it was a timing issue. I think I did have an unusual novel. I don't think the thing that also made it difficult to get published and not make it through with that editor at Macmillan and go all the way through is also the thing that helped get it published by the university press, is because it is kind of unusual. And I don't know, I mean, my next novel, it could take me 5 years. Once I finish it, it could take me forever, or I could never get it published. So we shall see. We shall see. I feel a little bit guilty, just a little bit about that, because I have friends that got their MFAs, took multiple classes, did their entire thesis with their novel, that submitted it for years, and they didn't get it published. And I don't know how that works. I think it's a timing. It's not, because those people are as talented or more talented than I am. I think it always, and let me tell you guys, this is why you need to be writing often and submitting often, because it's not a matter of talent. It's usually a matter of lining up the right poem or the right story at the right time. And editors are looking for, like, I'm helping with a journal right now, and I'm looking at things, and we're putting pieces together beside other pieces. And maybe we have one poem that looks like another poem, so we have to slide this one out. And this one would have worked really well. It's a really great poem, but this one, for this reason, works better with this group. Same thing with novels. There's a zeitgeist, there's a culture and spirit of the times. Maybe this publisher has something that's similar, or maybe they think because of this content or this style, it's not going to sell as much, but they know it's really good. There are all different reasons. It's not because your actual writing is not quality. So that's why you have to think big picture and be tenacious. Do not take 1 rejection or 20 rejections or 50 rejections or 100 rejections as indicative of you have no talent. Now, continue to grow your craft. We all do, but don't ever give up, because it's really about fitting in these narrow slots, and you don't know what those slots are, because it's kind of always changing. So I just happen to be able to fit in a slot very uniquely at a particular time. And I'm very grateful for that, because I felt kind of like, well, after all this bad stuff had happened to me in my life, I was like, something really great happened. So, because I was like separated, like it was like from my husband, bad stuff had happened. It was very sad. And, but then I was like, look, this is this beautiful thing. And so I was like, thumbs up to that. So there.
Well, I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we are very grateful to have like music in the world and out there, and you can purchase your copy of it along with Tina's Known by Salt over at Thank You Books. So Thank You Books is our local indie bookstore that we love and support. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and agreeing to come and talk with us. I am very grateful to have your light and your energy kicking off the Spark Writing Festival. So thank you for coming and giving us your good words. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for organizing it. Thank you for you. Thank you for Tina. Thank you for all of you all. Write, experience art, have joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Oh, and if go my website, it has like my email or contact, or if y'all have follow-up questions or want some encouragement, we're bonded now. Y'all came and y'all were hanging out with me. So we're family now. Please contact me. We can continue the conversation. Just send me an email at UAH, okay?
Fantastic. And I'll make sure that your website is linked on the Spark website as well, so everyone will be able to find it easily. To all of our watchers, viewers out there tonight, thank you for your attendance. We really appreciate you guys. Tune in tomorrow. So keep your same Zoom link, because that will let you into all of our events. Tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. where we will have artist Melissa Yes bring us to sort of a meeting of art and writing. So we're really super excited about that as well. And with that being said, thank you guys so much. Appreciate having you. And I'll see everyone tomorrow night, right?
Wonderful. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to come visit. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye, everyone.